Hello. Good morning. Is it Tuesday? I think so, Tuesday. Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining. Mama Bear today, and we have Piggy in the background chewing her bone. I don't know if you can see her. Oops, wrong way. Huh? She's back there chomping away. Lots of little piggy noises going on back there. Good morning, everyone. We are going to talk about dairy today, everyone's favorite subject. So join in, tell your friends, good morning. Thank you for saying good morning. I know you can hear me, which is great. Good morning, Facebook, you guys out there? So, good morning. I am Dr. Tricia Pingel, and this is your morning checkup. And today we are going to talk about the link between dairy and inflammation. I know most people, when I tell them they need to stop their cow's milk dairy consumption or severely limit it, that's where I get the most resistance. We as a nation are addicted to dairy. It is crazy how much people cannot live without it at the expense of their health in many times. Now, I'm not saying that everybody has trouble with dairy, okay? But when I tell you the statistics, it's a lot of you, and it's a lot more of you than you think it is. So, good morning. Good morning over there on Facebook. Thank you. That's what we're going to talk about today is this connection between dairy and inflammation. And it's a lot stronger than maybe you think. I know a lot of people think sometimes I'm making this up or I'm just telling them to quit dairy just to aggravate them. But no, there's actual benefit in doing so. I've been dairy free for I think about 15 years now. And prior to that, I loved dairy, okay? I ate it all the time as a kid, and I was vegetarian as a teenager with the exception of milk and egg products. So I ate it a lot during that time, but I didn't realize what it was doing to me internally until I was in my 20s. And when I found that and I quit it, it's amazing. It improved my health greatly. For those of you just joining, you're gonna hear a little Piggy in the background. She's back there chomping. She's hardcore on that antler there, huh? All right, so let's talk about it. Good morning, I'm well, thank you. It's Tuesday, which is good. It's a beautiful day here in Arizona. It's getting hotter here in Arizona. But you know, this is what we signed up for, so it's not all bad. So it's okay. All right, so dairy. When I say dairy today, I'm referring primarily to cow's dairy, okay? Now, granted, a lot of this also applies to sheep and goat, okay? But the research that I'm quoting and the stuff that I'm talking about was studying cow's dairy. So for the purposes of my stats today, that's kind of what I have to hang my hat on. But please keep in mind that dairy from different animals can have the same reaction. Some people do fine with goat, don't do okay with cow. I mean, you know, everyone's individualized. So we're just gonna kind of do it in general. When I say milk and dairy today, I'm referring to cow's milk and cow dairy. And also another misconception, and I find this all the time in food service, which I do not understand. Everyone seems to think that eggs are dairy. They're not, okay? Eggs are not milk. They are not made from a milked cow. They are made from a chicken. They are chicken. So they're not dairy. Now they're in the dairy case, which of course throws all these people off. And when I go out to eat and I say, you know, I don't eat dairy, they're like, oh, well, there's eggs in that. I'm like, okay, well, that's fine. I mean, it's not dairy. So please be aware when I say dairy, I'm talking about milk-derived products. So we're talking about butter, milk, cheese, creamer, that type of thing, okay? Cool. All right, so dairy is one of those food groups that you either love or hate, right? And usually if you love it a lot. But regardless of how much you love it, there is an undeniable link between dairy and inflammation. And I do have someone asking about straight out of the animal, unpasteurized versus pasteurized. You're right, I should clarify, all these studies are unpasteurized, okay? There's a lot of awesome information on raw, unpasteurized milk not causing these problems. There's a lot less problems with dairy in Europe than in America, okay? So there's ways that we process that do make a difference. So there's always exceptions to every rule. So I'm talking in general, you go to your local Safeway or Albertsons and you buy a gallon of milk, okay? That's what we're talking about. We're not talking about people that are living on a farm milking their own cow today, okay? Different life for a different time. But you may be surprised to, maybe not learn, but recognize that humans are the only mammal that drink milk past infancy. Just think about that, right? I don't feed Piggy milk, right? And everyone always, the argument that I would always get from people was, well, without milk, you don't have calcium and your bones can't grow. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. Now, every other mammal out there grows without milk. So why do we need milk to grow? Like, don't we just need minerals? Don't we just need nutrition? Like, why does it have to be directly from milk? It doesn't make any sense to me. There is ways to get calcium from vegetables. You can get tons of calcium from vegetables. You don't necessarily need it from milk. I mean, nuts are a fabulous source as well. But here we are, we just push it and push it and push it through childhood. Oh, you have to have milk to grow. You have to have milk to grow. Well, every other mammal grows without milk, outside of just the infancy period of breastfeeding. So let's just think about that for a second, okay? We might be given into a little bit of marketing there, okay? So we not only do Americans eat dairy, but Americans consume dairy products on a daily basis. This isn't even, a weekly thing. This is daily. How many out there admit that you have a dairy product every single day? A lot of you, okay? Okay, Americans alone consume 50 billion pounds of milk every year, and milk allergies account for 98% of the allergies in America, right? Crazy, okay? What's more is milk consumption has been linked to rashes, ear infections, digestive difficulties, and more. And that's what we're going to talk about, okay? So to me, it makes sense, right? Because here we are eating large abundance of milk products. We have the 98% of allergies are from milk. And a lot of the times we are just continuing to down it because we're told that it helps our bones. It's not going to help your bones if you're really inflamed, okay? It's not going to help your bones if your body is sick. So we need to look at other ways to support our bone health that don't always include dairy. Now, once again, I always have the haters out there that are like, oh, we need to eat dairy, but fine. Look, do what you want to do, okay? Your health, your body. I'm just going to give you the data that's out there in research on what milk is doing to our bodies, and you can decide what you want to do and how far you want to go from there, right? Because that's just the way it goes. All right, so I'm going to throw a lot of stats at you today, okay? Fun stuff. How is everyone today? You guys all hanging in there? Okay. So the problem with dairy intolerance or dairy allergy is that people consume dairy products so frequently throughout their day that they often don't even notice that it's not well tolerated. And I'm going to explain why that is. But small children are a great example. So infants and small children are a great example of how to find dairy and inflammation. Children are often seen for ailments that are normally written off as normal, such as ear infections, sore throats, frequent colds, bloating, gas, rashes, and colic, right? You take an infant there, you take an infant to a doctor for that, and they're like, oh, it's normal. Take some Milacon, or here, try this other formula, by the way, that's still milk-based, but it maybe is more digestible, or they tell you to change your diet if you're breastfeeding, which is that makes sense, right? But they don't tell you to eliminate dairy, right? They just say, oh, look for peppers and, spicy stuff must be irritating them, right? bouncing a baby up and down. Oh, just bounce them up and down to get the gas out, or we'll put them on an antibiotic to clear up this infection. And of course, subsequently, when you put them on an antibiotic, you kill off all their good gut flora, which is protecting their immune system. Okay, so these are important things to consider, especially, I was a mom, with a young baby, and now they're big boys, and I had to go through this too, and you're tired, and you're new to it, and you don't know what to believe, and people are telling you to do this and that, and you're the one up at night with a screaming colicky baby, and nobody really has a solution other than bounce them up and down and take an antibiotic or switch their formula. And you can spend weeks trying to figure that out, right? So knowing that babies usually give us a sign of something not going right, instead of trying to change the type of milk they're drinking, maybe we should consider that maybe milk is the problem from the get-go. There's been a lot of links to this. So babies who suffer from chronic ear infections, typically that starts to show up by about age of 1. They're usually put on antibiotics to fight the bug, and they're put on antibiotics a lot because their ear infection continues to come back. Now, I'm not talking about the children that have like one ear infection and that's it. I'm talking about the kids, and you guys know who they are, who just continually have ear infections over and over and over again, okay? They're put on antibiotics over and over and over and over again, often ending up with ear tubes in their ears because their ears aren't developed, right? Well, if there's inflammation in the system, that can cause the eardrum to hurt pretty darn bad, okay? And putting ear tubes in may not always be the answer. We have to look at each individual case, right? So there's many parents usually about this point get pretty darn frustrated, right? So looking for alternatives and other things is always a good thing, and this is just information and food for thought for you. But when it comes to any age, common and reoccurring ailments that aren't a disease per se, but just ailments, regular sore throats, not feeling well, bloating, well, all these little symptoms like, oh, just, take a Gas-X, oh, take an antacid, oh, this or that. Consider that allergens might be at the root of the problem. Now, when we're talking about allergies, I want to repeat a stat. 98% of food allergies are due to milk in America. That is not my stat. That is from a study that is well documented. That's not me making that up, okay? So if you look at case studies and you look at the primary food allergen, milk is 98% of them, okay, which is crazy. In fact, studies have shown that those with dairy allergies are significantly more likely to experience recurrent ear infections. So I try to catch this in younger people, and when I have adults come to me that talk about a lot of digestive issues or acne, like we talked about yesterday, skin conditions, poor immune function, I usually ask them, did you happen to have recurrent ear infections as a kid? And I'm telling you, most of the time, they did. And I find if I pull dairy in those people, those symptoms that they're having get better because there's a very strong link between it. And that's just my clinical experience, but it's always been a great cue to me, and the research backs that up. Now, common signs of dairy allergy, especially in children, colic is a big one. Also, normally just said we're normal, right? For those of you asking about milk alternatives, I promise I'm getting there. Bear with me. You got to watch the whole thing today. You can't bail out. We got more. Colic, rashes, gas and bloating. If the allergy is left undiscovered, you'll see a lot of immune system changes. Frequent colds, chronic ear infections, chronic mild strep throat or sore throats and strep throat, asthma. I usually see a development of ear infections to childhood exercise-induced asthma to reoccurrent sore throats in the teen and young adult ears, and then coming back to asthma in the end. Adults who develop asthma, strep throat, frequent headaches, gallbladder issues, or diverticulitis later in life have typically dealt with chronic ear infections as a kid. Oh, Piggy. She's saying hello. So I want to talk about the difference between a dairy allergy and a dairy intolerance, okay? So typically, let's say you go to your doctor and you want to be screened for allergies, or you want your child screened for allergies. So they pull out these needles and they prick you, and they see if you have a hypersensitivity reaction. That is an IgE immediate reaction allergen, okay? So the people that eat a strawberry and their lips swell up within an hour, right? Or you can't breathe, that's anaphylaxis. That's an IgE mediated, histamine mediated quick reaction. Trust me, if you have an allergy that's quick reaction to dairy, you already know, okay? Because you take a sip of milk and you know, you can't breathe, or you have an asthma attack, or you get sick real quickly, okay? Those aren't the allergies I'm necessarily talking about, because those allergies you already know. So you're like, God, I just haven't been feeling well. And you go to the allergist and that's the allergy test they run and they go, oh, you're not allergic to milk. Well, of course you're not allergic to milk in an IgE way. You would know. So there are other types of allergies. They're called delayed reaction allergic response. And those come from two other immunoglobulins. Isn't that a great word? Immunoglobulin. I love that word. That's a fun one. So the immediate one is immunoglobulin E, okay, IgE. Then we also have immunoglobulin G, IgG, and we have immunoglobulin A, IgA, okay? So these are all different types of reactions. So IgG, the G form, you can't test with a prick test, okay? You can test in blood. So that's typically how it's done, but that's a delayed sensitivity reaction. So you drink the milk and within 4 days you have some sort of reaction. Okay, so it's not an immediate, and it doesn't have to be life-threatening. Okay, it could be mild, you know, headaches or whatever. But the difference is when you have that quick release, the IgE reaction, what happens is that's releasing histamine right away. That's causing your immune system to promote inflammation to kill off that threat, okay? That's immediate. Now in an IgG, the histamine reaction and the immunoglobulin reaction is still there, but it's at a lower level. So instead of getting so high to where it stops you from breathing, it's at like a 20% level or so. And that stays chronically over time. So what happens, Piggy, bad timing on squeaking the donut. So what happens is instead of getting this huge surge of inflammation that then goes down after the immune system takes care of it, you get this low level of inflammation over time. Whenever you have a low level of chronic inflammation over time, it causes problems with your gut. Okay, and when it causes problems with your gut, you get digestive difficulties. You're not getting the nutrients you need. Your immune system is always on point. And when it's always on point, it gets tired and it misses things. So you start to notice those frequent colds that never turn into anything, mucus in the back of the throat when you eat ice cream, little things that just signal that the immune system's like, I'm a little inflamed. And then the reaction could happen up to 4 days. So it's really hard sometimes to pinpoint what food did what, but I can bet you dairy's in there somewhere. It's usually the most common. Piggy is definitely trying to say hi. She has this stuffed donut. It looks like Homer Simpson's donut, and it has a squeaky in it, and she's running back and forth behind me squeaking Homer Simpson's donut. I would try to show you, but it'd be funny, but it'd be hard to turn the camera. So this chronic inflammation, so this chronic inflammation is the underlying issue for a lot of these health issues that maybe you can't get under control. Okay, does that make sense? So IgE usually test by a prick test, can also test in the blood. IgG and IgA are in the blood only, okay? And they're delayed, and that's very common. Now, I should also say that a dairy allergy and dairy intolerance is different than lactose intolerance. Lactose intolerance is that you don't have enough of the enzyme to break milk down. Now, that is the case in most of us. In fact, 75% of the world's population is lactose intolerant, with almost 50% of Americans being lactose intolerant, and I suspect more. Why? Because we're not supposed to drink milk after infancy. We weren't built that way. Our enzyme wears out. It's at highest levels when we're younger. And then as we get older, the enzyme loses its function because we aren't intended to eat it. So what's the solution in most people's worlds? They go out and they buy Lactaid to assist them in breaking down milk, and they keep eating milk, drinking milk and eating milk products. Obviously, your body doesn't want you to, so don't. right? Okay? And you're right, someone says no mammals drink other animals' milk except us. Very true. In fact, when I was saying that infants were the only mammals that drink milk past infancy, we're not drinking our own milk, we're drinking another animal's milk. Why? I don't understand. I really don't. Especially with the statistics I'm throwing at you. Why? Why are we doing that to ourselves? Okay, if you don't break milk down, if you're lactose intolerant, don't put it in, because even with that enzyme, yes, you won't have as much gas and bloating, but it's still not reacting well in the body, and you risk an intolerance reaction as well through the immune system, okay? So we're not equipped for it. Does that make sense, guys? Okay. So if you've been suffering some of these symptoms, or some of these symptoms ring true to you, or you've been thinking maybe that you have a dairy intolerance or dairy allergy, the best course of action is to eliminate it, right? Not so easy said than done in some people. For me, I'm one of those people that when I determine that something isn't good for my health, I can just kind of cut it off. It's never been an issue for me. People ask how I'm plant-based, how I go without meat, how I go without dairy. It just doesn't even, I just don't even think about it. Now, I realize not everybody is in that same situation. Many people really, really love dairy, and it's very, very hard to get rid of. But pay attention to that. Whenever you try to get rid of a habit, if it doesn't go away, that usually means there's some sort of addiction there. Yes, we can be addicted to dairy. Our bodies become addicted to that baseline inflammation. That becomes normal. That's our new homeostasis. So when you remove the dairy, the body's a little shocked by that, right? But it usually comes, this is a positive and I can't guarantee it, usually comes with a little bit of a shed of weight as well, because when you have a chronic level of inflammation, the body is in general somewhat puffy, retaining more water. Most people who cut out dairy, who are not tolerating it well, will actually lose a few pounds in the first couple weeks, because that water weight goes down and the body gets used to not being inflamed. Even myself, as tiny as I am, because I'm a tiny little person. I'm tall, but I'm very, very tiny, right? I don't have a lot of meat on me. And when I quit dairy in my 20s, even I lost 6 pounds within 4 days, because I was so inflamed. And someone's talking about milk being full of estrogens. Yes, a lot of the milk here is treated with hormones, and it causes problems. So if you think you might be affected, quit it. At least 6 weeks. I know, I said 6 weeks. Don't throw anything at me. Don't start throwing food at me. As I said yesterday, don't throw milk duds at me. But especially if you've been on reoccurring antibiotics, as we talked about earlier, in addition to cutting out dairy, you're gonna want to put in some probiotics, a really good probiotic. If you wanna know what that means, check out my live on probiotics and my article on probiotics. I have tons of info on that. Also, in general, if you've been inflamed for a long period of time, as I was, I had to use things like digestive enzymes, bitter herbs, apple cider vinegar, anti-inflammatory herbs for the gut, and probiotics, because I had gotten to a point where my baseline inflammation was so high, and it was coming out in my skin, it was coming out in my mood, I wasn't sleeping well, I didn't feel right, I really didn't look quite right. My hormones were a mess. So I had a lot of cleanup to do, because I was eating something that my body didn't like. It took for me about 2 weeks, and I was feeling really good. I took 1 bite of cheese after that. 1. And I felt like somebody took a dagger and stabbed it through my abdomen. And that was my wake-up call. Since that day, I have not had any dairy intentionally. Now, was it a couple years ago, I went out and I asked someone to make something without butter, and I know they made it with butter, because I was sick and bloated and swollen for 4 days. So it has come back, but not on my own choice. So usually when that level of inflammation comes down after being chronically elevated for so long, when you have even just 1 bite or 1 meal of that food that was the original cause, it will cause a massive inflammatory upswing. And that's what had happened to me. So it showed me that, yes, I found what it was. Now, I've had some patients that removed dairy for 6 weeks. They put it back in. They literally have no difference, okay? Lucky you. You're one of the 10% or 15%, right? But it's not the most common situation. All right. So what are some of the substitutes, right? First of all, you don't have to substitute. I want to make that clear. If you cut out milk, you don't have to substitute with milk. It's really up to you. I like granola with a little bit of milk in it, so I needed a substitute, right? But you don't have to. Oh shoot, there goes Facebook today now. What's up with all these lives and being cut off? Did I say something I shouldn't say? Oh man. All right, I lost Facebook now. I don't understand. Lord. Can you guys still see me on Facebook? Was it just me that cut out? The most important part, right? What do we do about it? Facebook is gonna miss it. I'm tired of these streaming issues. I don't understand. I must have said something they didn't like and off I went. All right. Anyway, cutting, okay, people can still hear and see me. Good. I just don't see it. Awesome. Okay, good. Well, let's keep going then. So what are these dairy substitutes? So you don't have to substitute, okay? But oftentimes in recipes, or if you're used to like having like cereal with milk or something, you want to know what you can have. So there are a lot, if you can do nuts, there are a ton of nut milks available. Now, when I went off dairy 15 years ago, all I had was soy. That was it. Okay, that was my only option, and it was rather crappy. It wasn't great. And going out to eat was almost impossible because nobody had alternatives. Now, the world has changed, and there are tons of alternatives. We have almond milk, we have hazelnut milk, macadamia milk, cashew milk, oat milk, you name it, pea milk. It's unbelievable. It really comes down to your personal taste. Now, I have some brands that I like better than others, and I will tell you, just as a friend of friend, which ones I really like. Now, I've been doing this for a long time. I think when I originally switched to almond milk and soy milk, I used some of the more sweetened versions because it just had a more similar taste to milk, and then over time I wanted to get rid of all these extra sweeteners. So now I'm pretty much down to the bare minimums. I prefer simply nuts and water, but and I make my own almond milk, and by the way, it's so easy, especially if you have a Vitamix blender. But some of the brands that I really like, I've really been using a lot of Elmhurst lately. You can get it at some local grocery stores. You can get it online. I love the Elmhurst creamers for my coffee. That's what's in here right now, in little mama bear. And I do love Forager. Forager's a great one. I love their cashew milk. They have an incredible cashew milk. I'm not a huge fan of coconut milk to drink. I use coconut milk a lot in recipes, not coconut beverage. Oh, Piggy. So let's be clear. There's a coconut beverage and there's a coconut milk. A lot of people go to the store and buy coconut beverage and they're like, oh, this is really watery and it doesn't taste really good. Yeah, it really doesn't. It's also full of a ton of crap. So I suggest if you're gonna do coconut milk, make sure it's a pure coconut milk. I use the canned coconut milk a lot. You can make your own creamer out of that. You can also buy some. I tend to like the creamers that are oat-based, cashew-based, and almond-based. They just seem to have a better flavor for me. But I do like Elmhurst, Khalifa Farms, and Forager. Those are the three I tend to go to because they're pretty readily available. Now, there's other brands out there. Costco, my kids do the Silk almond milk from Costco because they literally drink so much of it that I can't afford to do Forager for them. I mean, it would cost me hundreds of dollars per week in milk. So, there's all these different brands you can try. I always say, look at the back, see how many additives are in there. Over time, try to reduce that number of additives. Just so you know, there is just as much vitamin D, just as much calcium, and more minerals and stuff in plant-based milks. So don't fall into you have to have cow's milk to grow. That's ridiculous. Show me an animal out there that's not growing because it's not drinking cow's milk, okay? So, yogurts. This morning I had my Forager cashew yogurt with some fruit and a little bit of gluten-free granola. It's heaven. I love Forager cashew yogurt. You can also make your own, okay? These aren't hard things to do. I know when I say make your own dairy products, you're like, oh my God, Dr. Pingel, I don't have time for that. They're so easy. If you have a Vitamix blender, which hands down, people say, what's the number one thing you use in your kitchen the most? It's my Vitamix blender. I use it every day. I use it for everything. I can make a cashew cream sauce in 2 minutes. You know, you can blend stuff to pour into an ice cream maker. You can make your own milks, creamers, whatnot. Very, very, very easy. Yogurt is another one you can make on your own. That's a little bit more difficult. I prefer to buy mine. I love forager yogurt. I love, there's Chobani just came out with a dairy-free yogurt that's pretty good as well. Now that has quite a bit of sugar, so watch that. I put it on top of even Indian dishes that I make. When I make like a curry, a really spicy curry, you can do a dollop of cashew yogurt on top. Honestly, replaceable to regular yogurt. Do note, yogurt is dairy most of the time. So I have a lot of patients who say, well, I'm dairy-free, but I have my yogurt every morning. Okay, well, hey, guess what? You're not dairy-free. Don't know what to tell you. On the vegan cheese front, I would be careful with vegan cheeses, okay? A lot of them are full of a ton of junk. That's why I make cashew cream sauce most of the time, where you soak cashews, you put in water, I put in some nutritional yeast, and then whatever spices I want, whether it's Italian or whether it's spicy, and I'm gonna do cayenne. I mean, you can switch it up. You have to be careful with vegan cheeses. Now, with that said, there are a few out there that are way better than others, and I have them on the dairy article on my website, which I will put on the Facebook feed, and we can put below the Instagram feed as well. I have 11 different vegan cheeses that I found a list of that actually are pretty good. They're the best ones that I can find. But do pay attention to what's in them, okay? If you have nut allergies, a lot of these you can't have. Okay, so just pay attention to that. With that said, there are a bunch of items on labels that are milk, but you don't know they're milk. Okay, cheeses are notorious for this. On the back of the label, they will say casein, C-A-S-E-I-N, or caseinates, right? Those are dairy. So it may say non-dairy cheese, but it's not. Okay, so don't believe the front of the package, flip it over and look at the back of the package, okay? Some of the other things, whey solids, milk solids, hydrosylates, so like milk protein hydrosylate, casein hydrosylate, whey hydrosylate, lactoalbumin, lactoglobulin, lactose, right? Those types of things, if they have the word lac in it, probably dairy, okay? They don't have enough dairy to be labeled, but they have dairy. So if you're truly committing to this, you're like, look, I want to cut it out and get rid of the inflammation, you have to read the back of the label. Cheese is where it'll get you, okay? So watch those vegan cheeses. Don't fall for it, okay? Now, everyone's favorite, ice cream, right? Well, as you may know, and you may have looked in your grocery store, there are a ton of alternatives for ice cream, okay? But a lot of them are full of a bunch of junk as well. Many of them have that hidden milk in them, casein and whatnot, so you gotta watch out, okay? So I like making my own. I know, once again, I'm making my own. How much time do I have on my hands? Well, to make ice cream, I have maybe 4 minutes, because you literally put your ingredients. It could, I mean, I have one I make, I think it's like 4 ingredients. It's like canned coconut milk, cocoa powder, maple syrup, and vanilla extract. Pour it into the Vitamix blender, blend it up, pour it into the ice cream maker, walk away. Come back a half an hour later and put it in the freezer. Really, it takes me longer to go to the store and pick out a dairy-free ice cream than it does to make my own. So I have a great recipe on my website if you haven't seen it yet. That is a homemade peach ice cream with blackberries and lavender. That one's heavenly as well. You can make sorbets. In a pinch, you can go to the grocery store and get a dairy-free ice cream. Always look at the back, okay? Read it. Okay, some of the more expensive ones that are more privately owned brands, you may think this isn't worth it, but it's usually because the ingredients are more pure. Okay, so take a look at those, consider them. So at any rate, if you are having any issues with your skin, ear infections, poor immune function, regular sore throats, feeling tired, excess weight, joint pains, conditions that other doctors are just band-aiding, hormone irregularities, consider the removal of dairy. It's really not that hard, and it's free. Okay, people say, well, what can I do? I don't have the money to do naturopathic medicine. I don't have the money for all these supplements. Okay, well, great. fix your diet. If you fix your diet and you're eating good foods, your body knows what to do. If you're eating something that causes inflammation, your body can't do what it's gonna do. So take the dairy out, try it. I challenge you guys to try it. Try it for 3 weeks, try it for a month, and report back. Tell me how you feel. I'd really like to know, because odds are that at least 50% of you are not doing well with the milk consumption, and most of you are eating it every single day. Now, I had someone ask about butter, so I want to throw this in. My favorite vegan butter is Earth Balance. It's easy to find. Now, there are others out there that are heavenly, but sometimes they're harder to find, so to recommend them really isn't realistic. But of course, if you go to Whole Foods, you're gonna find a ton of them. Earth Balance, I find it Safeway, I find it Albertsons, I find it Fry's, I find it Whole Foods, Sprouts. It's pretty consistent across the board. They have a soy-free one, they have an olive oil-based one, and they have a soy-based one. So you can kind of play with different flavors, which one works best with you, but my kids never knew. First of all, my kids didn't eat dairy. I didn't put my kids on dairy until I think my oldest has a really strong immune system. He came out fighting. He's just that kid's immune system is solid. He's a solid kid. And I think I first introduced dairy to him when he was about 3 years old. My younger one, who had a lot of digestive issues, wasn't quite as vibrant, I would say, at birth as his brother, we didn't introduce until he was 5. When you don't introduce it early, it's easier to pull it away. The problem that I have is it's the first thing that people introduce to infants, and then when they have a reaction to it, they can't get the milk away from a toddler. The toddler screams and goes crazy. So if you're pregnant or you're expecting to have children, consider not throwing so much milk at them in the beginning. I realize as infancy, if you're doing a formula, maybe you're trying it, be aware of it. But when they actually start eating foods, don't make cheese and mac and cheese and all that the first food, because it's addictive. Wait, do vegetables and fruits and nuts and things like that you can introduce over time, and then add the cheese later if you have assured that they probably don't have an allergy. So that's just my advice, mom to mom. Because it's very hard. Any of you that have tried to remove mac and cheese from a toddler, I luckily never had to do that. I had to fight with my son about vegan mac and cheese as a toddler, and now he hates it, which is great. I'm all for that. So anyway, I hope this topic was helpful to you guys. Once again, I'm Dr. Trisha Pingel. This is your morning checkup. We were talking about dairy today. I have an article on it, drpingel.com. Check it out. If you haven't been to drpingel.com, go there, read the articles. Let me know what you think. I love the feedback. I love the comments. Thank you to all of you over on Facebook today that told me that we're still streaming. Bye now.